All right, we're going to go over the 1.5 homework. So even though this says 1.4, it's actually 1.5. It is our absolute value equations. So we solve these kind of the same way that we would solve a normal equation, but our first step is to isolate the absolute value. So we want to get that part all by itself. So I have to move that -1 to the other side. How can I do that? Add 1. So now I have the absolute value of -2p is equal to, what's 5 plus 1? 6. Now what do I have to do to drop those absolute value signs? Anybody remember from the video? No. That's going to be my next step after I get rid of the absolute values. Tessa, do you remember?
Don't you just write 2p equals 6?
So it would be -2p is equal to 6. And then we also have to include the -6 also. So -2p is equal to -6. We have to split it up into the positive version and the negative version. Because if I took the absolute value of 6, that is 6. If I took the absolute value of -6, that is also positive 6. Because the absolute value makes whatever's on the inside positive. So I have to do the negative version and the positive version. And then just solve normally. So Felipe, what should I do next?
After that, you should divide by 2.
Awesome. Divide by -2.
-2 on the left side and just 2 on the right side.
So what's 6 divided by -2?
-3.
-3. Perfect. So that's one of my answers. And then I do the same thing for my other equation. Divide both sides by -2. So what's -6 divided by -2? +3. So those are my 2 answers. All right, let's do the next one. Well, we'll do number 3. So first thing I want to do is get that absolute value all by itself. So what should I do to move that -3 to the other side? -3 is doing what to the absolute value? Multiplying to that absolute value. So what's the opposite of multiplication? Division. So I'm going to divide -3 on both sides. So it'll cancel out there. So I have the absolute value of a plus 2. And what's -3 divided by -3? 1. Now what do I need to do when I get rid of those absolute values? Tessa. A plus 2 equals 1. And what else? A plus 2 equals -1. I split it up into 2 equations. The positive one and the negative one. And then I just solve. So if a plus 2 is equal to 1, how do I solve for a? Tessa. Subtract 2 on both sides. So a is equal to what? -1. Awesome. 1 minus 2 is -1. So that's one answer. And then what should I do in my second equation? Nick.
Subtract 2 from 2 and -1.
Awesome. So what's a equal to?
A equal to -3.
A is equal to -3. Awesome. So these are my 2 answers here. So in your absolute value equations, you'll have 2 answers. Any questions there? All right, let's look at number 5. Again, I want to isolate my absolute value, so I need to move that -3 to the other side. How do I move that -3 touching the absolute value to the other side? Awesome. Divide by -3. Since it's being multiplied, I do the opposite of multiplication, so I divide. So I have the absolute value of m divided by 4. What's -3 divided by -3? 1. Now that my absolute value is all by itself, I want to split this up into 2 equations. So I have m over 4 is equal to 1. And then what's my other equation? Awesome. M over 4 is equal to negative 1. So for my blue equation, how do I solve for m? If m is being divided by 4, what's the opposite of division? Multiplication. So I multiply both sides by 4. So it'll cancel out on the left. I have m is equal to 1 times 4, which is 4. So that's one answer. Do the same thing on the other side. Multiply both sides by 4. Cancels out. So m is equal to, what's negative 1 times 4? Negative 4. Those are my two answers. So number 7, what should I do first? Add 6 to both sides. Awesome. I want to isolate my absolute value. So I have the absolute value of a plus 1 is equal to, what is negative 5 plus 6? 1. Now what should I do?
You should subtract 1 on both sides.
Before I do that, what do I have to do? Make the other equation. So I split it. Split it into two equations. A plus 1 is equal to positive 1. A plus 1 is equal to negative 1. So think about it. In order to get rid of these absolute value walls here, you have to break it up into two parts. So to get rid of the absolute value, you have to split it into two equations. So in my blue equation to the left, I have a plus 1 is equal to 1. How do I solve for a? Minus 1 on both sides. So a is equal to, what's 1 minus 1? 0. So that's one answer. In my second equation, what should I do? Minus 1 on both sides. What's negative 1 minus 1? Negative 2. So a is equal to negative 2. So my two answers are a is equal to 0 and a is equal to negative 2. So looking at number 2. These are our absolute value equations. We solve them pretty similarly to how we would solve a regular equation, but we want to get this absolute value all by itself. Because once we get it all by itself, then we can get rid of it. So how can we move that plus 2 to the other side? Minus 2. So we subtract 2 on both sides, so then we have the absolute value of 2k is equal to, what's 8 minus 2? 6. Anybody remember from the notes how we can get rid of that absolute value? Roy? So we make a negative equation and a positive equation. So 2k is equal to 6. That's our positive one. And then we have 2k is equal to negative 6. There's our negative one. So in order to get rid of those absolute values, you have to split the equation into two different equations. So for absolute value questions, you'll always have two answers. The reason why we do this is because, let's say we had the absolute value of 6. That equals 6, but if we had the absolute value of negative 6, that also equals positive 6. So the absolute value changes what number is inside it to positive. So it always gives you the positive of that number inside. So you have to split it up into the positive version and the negative version, and then solve. So in this blue equation, our positive version, how do I solve for k? Divide both sides by 2. So I have k is equal to, what's 6 divided by 2? 3. So that's one answer. K is equal to 3. And then in my second equation, what do I need to do to solve for k? Divide both sides by 2. What's negative 6 divided by 2? Negative 3. So k is equal to negative 3 is my second answer. So I have two answers here, 3 and negative 3. All right, let's look at number 4. So again, I want to isolate my absolute value, get it all by itself. So how can I move that minus 6 to the other side? Add 6. So the absolute value of 6 plus x is equal to, what's 4 plus 6? 10. Now that my absolute value is all by itself, how can I get rid of it? Split it. So I'm going to split it into two equations. 6 plus x is equal to 10. 6 plus x is equal to negative 10. So I split it into the positive version and the negative version. So my positive one, the blue equation on the left, how do I solve for x? Subtract 6 on both sides. So I get x is equal to what? 4. Awesome. And then my second equation, what do I need to do? Same thing, subtract 6. So what's negative 10 minus 6? Negative 16. So my two answers are 4 and negative 16. Any questions here? All right, let's do number 6. Again, I want to get my absolute value all by itself before I can do anything else. So how do I move that minus 2 to the other side? Add 2. So that gets rid of that minus 2. So I have the absolute value of negative 6 plus r is equal to, what's 10 plus 2? 12. Can I get rid of the absolute values now? Yep. Once it's all by itself, we can get rid of it and split it into two equations. So I have negative 6 plus r is equal to positive 12. Negative 6 plus r is equal to negative 12. So my equation on the left, the blue one, how do I solve for r? What should I do? Awesome, add 6. So it's 12 plus 6? 18. So that's one answer. Second equation, I'm going to do the same thing. Add 6. So it's negative 12 plus 6? Negative 6. That's my second answer. So number 9. So our goal in solving absolute value equations is to get the absolute value all by itself. So what do we need to do first to get that absolute value of 3x all by itself?
Plus 4.
Plus 4. So we have the absolute value of 3x is equal to, what's 8 plus 4? 12. And then how do we get rid of that absolute value? What should we do? Anybody remember from the video? We make it positive, so 3x is equal to positive 12, but then we also have to do the negative version too, so 3x is equal to negative 12. Yeah. The reason is because if we have the absolute value of 6, that is 6. If we have the absolute value of negative 6, that is also 6. So we have to represent the positive version and the negative version of this to get our two answers, because we'll have two answers here. So how do we solve for x in our first blue equation? Divide by 3 on both sides. So x is equal to what? 4. What about the second equation? Divide by 3 on both sides, so x is equal to negative 4. So our two answers to number 9 are 4 and negative 4. So for absolute value equations, you'll have two answers. Any questions? All right, let's look at 10. What should I do first to solve? Awesome, I want to get my absolute value all by itself, so I'm going to subtract 5. So the absolute value of x plus 4 is equal to, what's 12 minus 5? 7. How do I get rid of those absolute values? Make the two equations. So x plus 4 is equal to 7. X plus 4 is equal to negative 7. So we split it into two equations. How do I solve the blue equation? Subtract 4 on both sides, so x is equal to what? 3. And then in my second equation, what should I do? Subtract 4, so x is equal to what? Negative 11. Awesome, so these are my two answers. Any questions here? Alright, let's do number 11. Amanda, what should I do first here?
Add the 6.
6 is doing what to the absolute value here?
Oh. No. It's just there. You distribute?
No.
I don't know what the difference is.
It's being, what's happening between the 6 and the absolute value?
You're multiplying.
You're multiplying. So to move it to the other side, what do we need to do? What's the opposite of
Divide.
divide? So we divide both sides by negative 6. So the absolute value of 1 plus r is equal to, what's negative 6 divided by negative 6? 1. Amanda, how do I get rid of the absolute values? What do I need to do? What did I do in the last one?
You add. No, you subtract.
What did I do here and here? How did I get that pink equation?
You divide.
So I split it into two equations. I need the positive version and the negative version. So 1 plus r is equal to positive 1. 1 plus r is equal to negative 1. Split it. Now in the blue equation, what do I need to do to solve for r? Victor.
Subtract 1.
Subtract 1. So what's r equal to? 0. And then in the pink equation, what do I need to do? Same thing. Subtract 1. So then what's r equal to? Negative 2. Awesome. So my two answers are 0 and negative 2. Any questions here? Alright, number 12. Again, I want to get my absolute value all by itself, so I have to get rid of that divided by 5 there. Amanda, how do I get rid of it?
You multiply.
Multiply both sides by 5. So I have 5 plus r in my absolute value on the left, and 3 times 5 is 15. Now, how do I get rid of my absolute values? Before I do that, split it. So I have 5 plus r is equal to 15. 5 plus r is equal to negative 15. Now, Grace, what can I do?
Subtract 5 on the right side.
Awesome. Subtract 5. So r is equal to what? 10. So that's one answer. And then in the second one, what should I do?
Subtract 5 on the other side.
So then what's r equal to?
Negative 20.
Awesome. And that's my second answer. So that's all the questions from homework.